different.
I
know.
South of town. In 35 minutes.
Okay.
We'll record it that.
My hair
Mine is, I know.
All right.
Can't help it. Yours is sticking out just a bit. Yeah.
Oh, that's normal.
And nowadays.
There we are.
All right.
I don't have my broom.
So on the agenda for the last meeting, obviously, we passed the ordinance 3181 for project authorization. And for the November 9th meeting, we have on the agenda to authorize the initial process to issue the temporary notes. And I know this whole process is very convoluted, so we asked Greg Varnberg with Raymond James to kind of chime in and give us an overview on exactly what is going on and what we will be passing on Tuesday.
Sure. Well, happy to take it from there, and thanks for letting me participate in the work session. And I'll talk a little bit about the temporary notes and how those work and the process we go through to issue the temporary notes, and then how you might finance the balance of the improvement projects. But obviously, what we're looking at here is a financing for the proposed improvement projects that you have: the pool, the park improvements, ball field, the dam stabilization improvement projects that were intended to be paid for from the sales tax that was approved by voters on November 5th, 2019, the half-cent sales tax for 15-year period. And as you may recall, that sales tax became effective. You adopted a resolution or an ordinance that authorized that sales tax to be implemented. And if I remember correctly, that the start date for the collection of that sales tax was October 1st. So now that you have the sales tax in process and starting to focus in on the financing of the improvement projects, we've been running some numbers for the city that show temporary note financing, long-term bond issue financing, and a pretty common approach for cities throughout Kansas is that when you have several improvement projects, you need to get them started. You need some money to pay for some engineering costs and preliminary work. You'll be going through the process of getting construction bids to finalize exactly what you're going to spend on some of these projects. The approach that a lot of cities use is to issue temporary notes to provide some of that initial funding that allows you to get further into the process. And then once you determine the exact amount that you want to issue on a long-term bond issue, then you convert those temporary notes to the long-term permanent financing. And so in Kansas, the Kansas statutes allow for temporary notes to be issued for up to a 4-year period. And again, they're intended to be temporary financing. You could pay it off with cash at the end of a 1 to 4 year period whenever the temporary notes expire. But most cities will roll that temporary note into a long-term bond issue, say a 15-year financing, once you get to the point where you're ready to do so. And so the financing analysis that we've prepared for the temporary notes, and I think this is just a starting point for the discussion, but I think it should work well for the timing of these projects. We had prepared a financing analysis. Hopefully you have a copy of that shared with you for the work session this evening. But what we were showing is a final maturity of the temporary notes on December 1 of 2023. And so we would have roughly a 2-year temporary note, but the temporary notes would be callable or prepayable anytime after June 1 of 2022. And so if we go through the process and issue the temporary notes in December, that money is then available to you to start some of these improvement projects. You'll continue planning for the final cost and the details of what will go into each project. And then at some point between the middle part of next year or all the way into the end of 2023, once you decide on exactly how much you want to have in that longer term 15-year bond issue, then we can convert the temporary notes into the long-term bonds. Just to give you an overview of the financing analysis we prepared, we're showing that you would have a principal amount of the temporary notes of about $3,080,000. $3 million of that would go into the project construction fund and be available to pay for some of those preliminary cost of improvements. We also have assumed that and this may or may not be true, but in our analysis, we're showing that you would take part of those temporary note proceeds and use it to cover interest on the temporary notes and you would begin to start making payments on the financing once you roll the notes into the long-term bond issue. Now, you could use some of the sales tax collections as they come in to pay interest on the temporary notes, or we could simply just roll the temporary notes into the bond issue and you start using sales tax collection to make payments on the financing once it becomes a bond issue rather than make payments on the temporary notes. But we have about $32,000 of the proceeds of the notes being used to pay interest or capitalized interest on the temporary notes. We have cost of issuance estimate in our analysis of roughly $30,000 and then underwriter's discount of about $23,000. So again, $3,080,000 of temporary note principal amount and about $3 million of that going into the project construction fund. And that $3 million can be used on any of the authorized projects. You've got flexibility to decide between the pool or the ball field or the dam stabilization improvements. And you can use the note proceeds for any of those authorized projects to help get them started. And then again, roll into a bond issue once you're further into the planning process. In terms of interest rates, we're showing that the temporary notes would have an average interest rate or a true interest cost of about 1.02%. Temporary notes typically have a little bit lower interest rate than a longer term bond issue just because they're a short-term financing. And to put it into perspective, we ran some numbers on a 15-year bond issue back in July. And we were showing an interest rate on a 15-year bond issue of about 1.81%. We've had a little bit of an increase in interest rates here in the last month or two. Still very low, but if we were selling the 15-year bond issue today, it may be closer to 2.1% instead of, say, the 1.8% that we ran back in July. But still at very, very low interest rates. Currently, when you think about interest rates and where we are currently, we set the all-time record low on municipal bond interest rates in August of 2020. And right now we're about 0.4% away from that all-time record low. So again, puts that into perspective, still a very favorable time to issue either a short-term temporary note issue or even the long-term bond rates are very favorable. So the process that you would go through to issue the temporary notes, I like to think of it as really a two-step process from the city council perspective. The first action that you would take would be the adoption of an authorizing resolution. And as was mentioned, that's on the agenda for your November 9th city council meeting. The authorizing resolution really does nothing more than give our firm, Raymond James, as underwriter for the temporary notes and Mary Carson's firm, Triplet Wolf Garrettson, as bond counsel. It gives our two firms permission to start pulling all of the information together for the temporary notes. Mary's office will draft the legal documents and get everything ready from a legal perspective. And from our perspective, once you have authorized us to start working on the issue, we'll pull together the preliminary official statement, which is an offering document given to investors. And we have a draft of that already started for you. And then we'll also work with the rating agency, which, historically, when we've helped you with your bond issue, we have used Standard & Poor's, and that's who we would probably work with on the temporary note issue. And once we have the legal documents prepared, the offering memorandum ready to share with investors, the temporary note rating released by S&P, then we're in a position to go ahead and offer the notes for sale to investors and lock in the final interest rates. The calendar that we prepared in your handout shows that that would occur sometime around December 6th. And assuming that we have a successful temporary note sale, which I'm sure we would then come back to you at your December 14th City Council meeting for that second step in the process. And the second step consists of adopting a note, what we call a note resolution. The first step is the authorizing resolution, gives us permission to start working on the issue. But the note resolution is more of a binding action on the part of the City Council, because the note resolution will have the final principal amount of the notes, the details of the issue, the final interest rates. And once you adopt that temporary note resolution, that locks in the interest rates and commits the city to issue the temporary notes. And from that point forward, after that December 14th meeting, we would work with Mary's office to complete the final documents and paperwork. And the calendar that we had prepared shows a closing of the temporary note issue on December 28th. And so on December 28th, the temporary notes would be delivered to the note investors. The note investors would pay the purchase price to the city, and that purchase price would be deposited into the city's bank account. And at that point in time, you would have money available to pay some of the preliminary project costs and get some of these projects moving forward. So you can see the process is really about a 6 to 8 week process from the time you authorize us to move forward to when you would actually have money in the bank to pay some of those project related costs. So I hope that that's a helpful overview, and would be happy to stop there and answer any questions, or if there's certain other areas you'd like for me to address, be happy to talk about that as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is probably a silly one. If you get all the money in your account and you're not spending it, can you do a short-term investment so it will draw interest?
Yeah. So if I understand your question, so once we sell the temporary notes, if we deliver $3 million in temporary note proceeds, can you have that invested by the city? And you can, but the short-term investment rates right now are very, very low. You'd probably get minimal interest earnings on that. And typically, I would encourage you to think about, what the size of the temporary notes needs to be. I mean, in other words, if you have $7 or $8 million in projects that you're thinking about, and we issue $3 million in temporary notes, what you're really doing is trying to get enough money to get you, 6 or 12 months into the process, and then convert that smaller temporary note issue into the larger bond issue. So you don't want to have a lot of note proceeds sitting around if you really don't need to use those. And so that's why, we ran our analysis with about 3 million. I think that would get you quite a ways into these projects. But if you have 7 or 8 million of total improvements that you plan to do, once you decide on how much you want to borrow the total amount, and let's say, for example, that's 7.5 million, again, just for sake of discussion, then you've already financed about 3 million of that. Then when we convert the notes to a long-term bond issue, we would have a $7.5 million bond issue, 3 million of which would pay off the temporary notes, and then it would provide you the additional 4.5 million you need to have the full 7.5 million of construction funds. But in terms of investing it, kind of getting back to your question, you want to be careful that you don't go out and take temporary note proceeds and tie that up in, say, a 1-year CD to get a better investment rate, because really the goal of temporary notes is to give you money that you plan to spend in a pretty short period of time. And if you think you won't need money for a year or two, then maybe we don't need to issue that amount in the temporary notes up front. I don't know if that made sense or answered your question, but hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you.
So once we actually come up with what we think is going to be a final figure, we're probably smart to go ahead and then convert it to the full bond issue so we can get the better interest rate at that time, correct?
Yes, and very good point. And one of the nice things about temporary notes is that if you had, let's say, for example, you're using $3 million to get these projects started, and then let's say the early part of next year, you decide on the exact amount you need to borrow, and let's say, for example, it's $7.5 million. But if you haven't spent all $3 million of the temporary notes, then you've got some flexibility to look at interest rates and decide if you like interest rates the early part of next year, next spring, or next summer. Then you can, once you decide on the amount of the bond issue, you can go ahead and lock in those long-term interest rates. But if we see like a temporary disruption in the financial markets or something that just doesn't feel like it's the right term to sell those long-term bonds, and you still have temporary note proceeds, then that gives you the money to keep the projects moving forward, but you don't have to immediately sell bonds to obtain the funding for the balance of those projects. So you have some timing flexibility to lock in those long-term rates by the approach you're taking.
And what was the length of the term? You said the short-term notes were for, did I hear you say 4 years?
Yeah.
We could go out to 4 years. The Kansas statutes allow us to have 4 years. We have the $3 million financing analysis set up with a final payment in 2023. So we would have a 2-year temporary note that's callable or prepayable anytime after about 6 months. Now, if you said you'd like to have a little bit longer temporary note, we could go ahead and set it for 3 or 4 years. You'd have a slightly higher interest rate if we went 3 or 4 years. So I think the question from the city council perspective is, how long do you realistically think it's going to take to finalize the other project costs or the details to where you're ready to convert to a long-term bond? If you said you might want to have the temporary notes outstanding for 3 years, then we would go ahead and set it with a 3 or 4 year final maturity just to give you that flexibility.
Any other questions?
Do you have any questions that would help us see even more?
No, well, so we wouldn't need to have the exact cost estimates for the total project to be able to move forward with the authorization for next council meeting, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, and where you're at in the process is very typical for a city. You have projects, you're going to need some money to get started. You make an estimate in terms of how much money you need, and that's where we came up with the $3 million. You're probably going to spend more than that on all of the projects, but this will get you started and a long way into the planning process and give you the funds to move things forward. And if you issue $3 million in temporary notes, and then the early part of next year you're ready and you still have $2 million of unspent temporary notes, then that money still stays available and is applied towards the projects. We just issue bonds to provide any additional funding over and above what the temporary notes provided. So it's pretty common to work off of an estimate just to give yourself that money to keep things moving forward and give yourself some timing flexibility to figure out the balance of the projects.
What would happen if we ran out of temporary note money?
Yeah, another good question. Yeah. And so if you spent all $3 million and you still weren't ready to go ahead and issue the long-term bonds, then you may say, let's say you needed another few $100,000, then you have the flexibility under the documents that Mary has already drafted, the project resolutions. You could use some city cash to pay $100,000 or $200,000 or any amount that you were comfortable in covering from city cash. Or if you came back and said, you know what, we're not going to be ready to issue bonds for a longer period of time. Let's go ahead and issue another 2 or 3 million of temporary notes, say a year from now. And then you might want to wait until, 2 or 3 years to convert the notes to bonds. So you can issue additional temporary notes. You want to set the amount of the temporary notes high enough that it gives you that flexibility that you don't have to come back and do a second financing. But you also don't want to issue 7 or 8 million in notes, and you really only need 2 or 3 million of money to get projects started. You don't want to have a lot of cash just sitting there for a year or two that you're really not needing to use to keep the projects moving ahead. So, but you do have flexibility if you run out of note proceeds, and there's a couple of options there.
Just thinking worst case scenario. Thank you. Anything else?
Very informative.
Yep. Good. Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome. Thank you. I hope it was helpful and good to visit with you this evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
The only thing I worry about hanging us up is supplies for the actual projects. True.
On the plus side, I think this would be more to allow us to get to the place
All the
where we
stuff-
would know.
What we're gonna do.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
the supplies is an issue, we'd be able to plan
'Cause-
and
mhm,
then the bonds to be able to pick that up.
mhm.
So
Well, like the lake project probably isn't gonna be affected by supplies.
No,
Pool and ball fields may.
a lot of that was going to be before the supplies.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just where the notes.
The dirt work and all
Yeah.
the good
This
stuff.
will give us a good idea of what we actually need.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things I'd like to bring to you, Artie, is
Mhm.
I've been out of it for a long time,
Uh-huh.
but I know that if we invested proceeds from the
No
temporary
arbitrage.
note, there was a lot of, yeah,
Yeah, it's that arbitrage.
yes, very, and you do not want to get into
No,
that.
you do not. No, I knew that. One time we had talked about that, and I remember that word arbitrage because I just found that interesting word.
Yeah, even auditors would go.
Yeah, you don't do that. You
No.
pay for that. Yeah.
So Mary Carson's already worked on a draft for us. So we will go ahead and move forward with the draft if everyone's okay to move forward with the authorization only, just the authorization, not obviously the issuing temporary notes.
And we'll get a rundown again of what we had
Absolutely.
previously with the money that we're planning on spending and what we're doing.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Have you heard anything back from the report on the dam?
Sorry, one moment.
Okay.
We got the newest study back, and Kirk has reached out to Matt Henderson, I believe, who did all of our initial dam inspections, and we have a meeting set with him on Wednesday to go over
Tomorrow?
next Wednesday.
Oh, next one.
Yes, he's out of town this week, unfortunately, but next Wednesday we have a meeting set up to go over the study and give us kind of a scope of what we need to look for. So
Okay,
yes, moving forward with that. Mhm.
good deal.
I have a question on the dam.
Okay,
We've spent a lot of money on that dam through the years, and we spend more money and it just keeps on having more money to be spent. That lake was built around 1951, 52, and back then, there wasn't the traffic over that dam that there is now.
Mhm.
And now you've got an enormous amount of traffic going over that dam. And I think that's probably what is causing part of the problem. Has anybody ever thought about running of the road on down south below the dam? You'd probably have to have a bridge there, maybe. I don't know how, if it's a lot of moisture water down there or not, but remove the road south of the dam and on up, and not allow trucks to go over no traffic over the dam anymore.
I'm not aware if that has been a suggestion.
No, I don't think it has been, but I
Don't think
think that I think it needs to be looked into, because I've had people telling me that there's a lot of heavy grain trucks that go over there, you know, you've got RVs out there, you've got a lot of traffic going over that
Sure.
bridge.
My hope would be that this study
Oh, yeah.
and the scope of work that we're looking for would take that in consideration.
Well, you
The
might-
stabilization and the fact that this is a traffic road, and they would
Yeah.
take all that to consideration to say what needs to be done to make it stable, so that won't be an issue. I
You
would
might
hope
bring
that
it, you
would.
might bring it up though, because I don't know if it'd be possible or not. I don't even know how far south we own the ground. But it's something
We've
to think
done work
about.
out there 2 different times on the erosion.
We did it in
We use
sections.
money, we do use money out of stormwater for that, for the
Yeah.
erosion. And then we haven't done anything for what, 2 or 3 years?
It does stay pretty wet down there too.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
You probably have to have a low water bridge or something to go across there, but it might be worth it in the long run.
I don't think, we haven't done the same thing twice
Yeah,
yet.
no, we have not.
Because it was done in sections.
It was done in thirds.
Mhm.
The next item we have is for our lovely HR director, Miss Vicky Belt. She has some lovely news to share with all of you.
I did, the girls told me, the ladies told me I did not have to come today. But I rarely get to present such really good news.
Oh, good.
I
Are the
insisted. Our Blue Cross and Blue Shield is going down 10.93%.
Wow.
Wow, there it is.
Unfortunately, our Delta is going up 1.82, but that is a state rule, so
Yeah.
that's, but that's basically what it is.
That's really good.
The Mike Keller, who is our broker, called me, it's probably been 3 weeks ago, and said, I have your Blue Cross and Blue Shield numbers, and it looks like you're looking at a 4-point-something percentage decrease. And so when Blue Cross contacted him then for sure and told him, he said, well, hey, he goes, well, what would make you happy? And Mike said, well, I'd like to have 10% for him. And so Mike fought our battle for us and got us a 10% decrease.
Is part of that because of not as many claims?
Right, we don't have as many claims, we didn't have any over $25,000 this year.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah, so the first page is actually just what they, here's our renewal dates, what they did. Vision is an optional, for the employees, it has a 0%. And, so rented in for 3 years, that's what our renewal is. The next page actually is what our claims are, expenses, what percentage is all broken out. As far as that goes. The next page is basically just says there's no claims under 20 or over $25,000. So now I need to make a disclaimer here that says our plan basically runs from January to January, but they start looking at our numbers in October. So what we actually really get are from October through August. So anything that happened late August and September of this year will affect next year's rates, but it's the same every year, so that's how it goes. The plans will stay the same. All of our plans are exactly the same as what they were. The one page is our current page. You'll see it where it says proposed, not for final discussion. That's where our current rates are. And then the next page is our renewal rates. So the city pays 78% of our $3,500 plan. And so when you see those numbers like at the top where this year it says 73% for the $1,500 plan, that's the buy-up employees get. So that keeps it straight across the board. Everybody gets the same amount of money from the city in the waiver premium. If you want to buy up, then you obviously can.
Do we still have any distinction between non-smokers and
We still
smokers?
do have that distinction. There is a 20% differential between that.
It's on the right side of the
Yeah,
paper,
it's on the
so
right
there's
side of
left
the
and
page.
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, they still get to enjoy some of that, even though it's there.
Our
I think
wellness
it's,
plans help, don't they?
I'm sorry,
Our
what?
wellness programs.
I think our wellness programs are helping, and for those, you know, we just did that a week ago. On the
Did everyone
19th.
participate?
Well, not everybody participates, but we had a really good turnout. I think I had 56 participants.
Holy cow.
So that was a big number for us.
Good.
You know,
I
and
got my results back this week.
Well, good for you.
It
But
happened
they
to me
were all-
twice. I decided they must have been pretty bad.
Well, you know what? Or you have to say, I got mine twice too. When I came last night, I thought, oh my gosh, what did they miss?
I thought the same.
But what that actually is, when I actually looked at it, I could see that anybody who was over 50 in women, they automatically ran the thyroid. So if you didn't ask for the thyroid, they automatically ran it for you. And in men, I mean, I think it's 40 for women in thyroid and 50 for men, or vice versa, which way it is. But they automatically run the PSA.
Oh,
So
I
based
will
upon
check
your
that.
age, so if you look at the very last page, you'll see your thyroid number down there. The rest of them should match. If they don't, you probably should let me know.
All right, I'll-
I don't need to see your numbers, but maybe I may need to look at mine better.
Mike, we're glad there wasn't a surprise on there.
It's a really nice program. When I took mine to the general practitioner, she said, this is much more in depth than what I would have ever ordered for you. So
Mhm.
I think that's a real positive. And the idea is if there's something serious out there, that we do catch it early.
Yeah,
And we know we've had a couple of those, so that's always a good thing.
It is.
The next page is the general plan. Those are fully insured. Like I said, it's in a state pool, so we get, however much you use, it doesn't affect that cost. It's just however much everybody else has used it. In the group, once again, here's the vision, and that's optional. Those plans are staying the same also as our basic lives. The rest of that is pretty much the same. The very last page where it says 22 contract changes. They're pretty minimal. Basically nothing that should be unexpected. They've actually lowered the screening for colorectal cancer. Again, it's showing us that the drug programs, they're about the same. It's about the diabetic supplies. They've added the glucose monitor, which is a nice thing. The prescription drug reissuance here, that's basically a non-event. The generic mandatory, I have to honestly say, I thought it was that way anyway. So a lot of plans are, so they will mandate that you get that. Now, if your doctor says, I want them to have a name brand, then Blue Cross and Blue Shield will pay it. But otherwise, if they don't specify, they look at a generic. And then the self-administered IV drugs, you do not have any hemophilias on our plans currently. So that doesn't affect us. So those plans are pretty minimal. Changes are, I think they're all positive. Renewal should be agreed this year.
Excellent.
Excited about that.
Didn't you guys start the wellness program right around 10 years ago?
Right around 10 years ago.
Because I remember before, and we were budgeting for like 25% increases in insurance premiums.
And yes, we did. So we
Kept going
started,
up
so
and
it
up.
certainly is helpful. And what we have to understand is we are a small group. And so a major claim can affect us greatly.
Mhm,
But this year,
mhm.
What did you do in the wellness program?
well,
Did you have people come?
at our wellness event,
Uh-huh.
so they could come in, they could get a flu shot and they get a 19-panel blood draw.
Okay.
And you get
So-
a breakfast burrito.
And
That's why
That's why I already goes.
I told him, I said, I'll give blood for anybody still feed me.
The days are gone when we got up early and we fixed breakfast for the employees. Those days are gone. COVID took care of that. But Price Chopper does a really nice breakfast burritos, and
They were
Which-
good.
they were, I got a lot of compliments on them, so we can, and they're always very helpful. They send their big warmers, so everything stays warm. So we start at 7 in the morning. This year we didn't end till, well, we were supposed to end at 10:30, but our screeners were like this, and they had us all through there. We also give flu shots. So we had some employees, which was really ironic. I had the same number of employees get screenings as the same number I get flu shots, and they're not all the same people. So I had, and I didn't keep track of it, but so if I had 6 that didn't get flu shots on, they got screenings, I had 6 more that got flu shots that didn't get screenings. So we do the spouses. If they have children that are old enough, we'll give flu shots for them. They don't get the blood draw, but the spouses obviously do.
But Dan then came too, so that.
Yeah, so we invite our retirees, because they are on our Blue Cross and Blue Shield plan,
Mhm.
and they can stay on there till they're 65 and Medicare age. So we always invite them so that they're,
Mhm.
it's important for them also. And then the rest of the wellness program, we just do little things throughout the year. September, we have a walkathon. So it's walk timber. So if they walk 6,000 steps, an average of 6,000 steps, they get 2 hours of what we call wellness hours. So they get 2 hours, they can take off sometime. And if they walk an average of 8,000 in September, then they get 4 hours. So there's little incentives for them to do those kind of things.
Mhm.
Attach it to your
Throughout the
dog.
year. The first couple of years, I did have a couple dogs that walked for them.
Windshield wipers.
There was some windshield wiper business going on. Some lawnmowers, if you put it in your, before everybody had Fitbits and phones, we just had little pedometers, and so they could put them in their pocket and they could drive on the lawnmowers, and that would count.
Oh, my gosh.
A couple tied on shoelaces, so. But this is the deal. You only get out of it what you put into it.
Uh-huh.
That's right.
So, I always think, if you'll cheat on something that little, what will it cost you to do something big? So,
Yeah,
I don't know. Anyway, but I think most of that has gone away. And I think most of them have decided it's probably not worth the effort to tie it to the dog and then chase the dog. So that is my good news this year.
good,
Excellent.
very good.
So, the next agenda item we have is Christmas bonuses. So every year since I've been here, I'm not sure how long it's gone back. You would know better than I would. We have gotten Christmas bonuses from the council. Last year, the amount approved by the city council was $150 for each full-time employee. So we were looking to see if we can put that on the agenda or what discussion you guys would like to have with that. And Vicky's here because it's her budget we take it out of.
It's your furniture we sell, right?
Yeah.
He's got new furniture, so we can probably get a better rate.
Probably.
Yeah, so we can't do the gift cards anymore. So what we did last year, we did actually get a $150 gift card, but it actually came out of our taxes on our checks. It was so, yeah.
The amount was so much that actually I had a couple of people going, I made less money than what I did because of the taxes and the capers that comes out of it. And so over the time you pay the social security, so they really got gift cards, but then they had to pay the
They pay taxes on
$150,
it.
the taxes on it.
Yeah.
So what are you suggesting? How would we deal with that?
Probably whatever amount you guys approve, put it to their payroll, but we'll probably pad it enough so they'll still get the amount you approve, but we'll pay for the taxes.
Mhm.
Am I right? Is that kind of what we're
Well, I
going
hope
for?
that we can make it
Yes.
look like that.
To the best of our ability, yes. That's
Is
what
Harold
we're.
okay with that?
So we.
What?
Harold okay with that?
Could you give them
Yeah.
gift
The
cards?
auditor?
No, Harold said no gift cards.
Well, you
The
can give-
IRS says no gift card.
IRS says no gift cards.
You
Right.
can give the gift cards, but you have to pay it like we handed them cash.
Taxes on it.
Yeah.
So they have to look at like that. So the problem is even if we pad it, you still are gonna pay the social security on it.
Yeah.
There's really not, there's not a good answer or a good solution at this point that is not in some way going to affect either the budget or the employees.
Do they need, probably most of them would like the money versus extra time off or something. Because extra time off is always something that doesn't affect your payroll.
Well, it's like our discussions have been before. It's getting fewer and fewer employees that actually have had the longevity before, but it was always a nice feature for the employee
Mhm.
because it came right before Christmas.
Right.
And it helped them with their Christmas plans and with their presents and stuff for their family.
Mhm.
I'd like to see us raise it to 200.
So if we do something like that, then I'm gonna suggest that we just do in flat cash, put it on their checks and not mess with the gift card. And this is the payroll lady speaking, because I have to go into everybody's file and I have to add that each one individually. So you have to make sure that you tie, and then I have to go back in and I have to take that amount out every time. It's not a simple process.
Mhm.
If we
So
just give it
do
to
what
them.
now?
Yeah, on their payroll.
Just
So-
put it on their check.
Just
Like
flat
if
put it
they
on their
give me
check.
an example, like they get $800, they get 1,000.
So, no, well, if Dave was saying $200, rather than give him a $200 gift card and let's try to figure out how much is in taxes, because everybody's tax bracket's gonna be different. It might not affect mine at all, but it might affect somebody else's drastically, and that's where they were running into issues. It
Okay,
was
so
just
how are
touching
you
that.
suggesting?
So I'm
we
just
do
saying, here's your cash. Put it on their card, let them pay the taxes on it,
Mhm.
and it's over and it's done. And rather than buying an actual gift card and sending them to Price Chopper, we can go out and buy a ham and hand it to them, but it's not the same. We can do that through the auditor. We can add
You
money.
get a turkey and stuff it with it.
I figure they'd buy turkey.
Hide it in there.
Can you look away from the microphone when you-
Already, when Harold asked me what was in that turkey,
Stuffing.
That'd be a silly question.
Just give
So-
Harold a turkey too.
there was not lettuce that was in the turkey apparently.
My question would be, is it possible to do, and maybe it's not, but is it possible to do a separate check run for just the bonus amount?
It
That way
is,
it reduces the overall taxes taken
it
out
is,
of the
it is
bonus.
possible to do
But
that.
what, is that more difficult for you or easier for you? And
We can certainly make that happen.
So they just get a separate check for
a separate check,
$200
if we made it
minus.
$200, take
minus
taxes out of
the-
that.
taxes
We
and
have, I think
things
we
that
have,
have to
we
come out.
can do a special pay, that's,
But
That
it wouldn't affect their total, like, say if they make 1,000 normally, it wouldn't put them in another tax.
No.
bracket.
that will not be in the tax bracket.
Yeah.
Everybody will probably
Right.
be in the same tax bracket if you
Yeah.
choose to do that. We just have to still run it through. We'll have to notify capers if we're gonna run a special payroll. That's what we used to do with the longevity, was
Mhm.
we ran a special payroll. And, based upon how long you had been with us, that was
Yeah, you got
basically.
so much. I
You just
remember
got so much,
longevity pay.
And the
Uh-huh.
employees truly do appreciate that.
Yes, they do.
You
Well,
wouldn't
then that
have,
way, it's all, my
Yeah.
opinion is that way it's separate, and even if it's not, even if they have taxes taken out, it may not be a lot, but it's still a separate check, so they know it's,
yeah.
Well,
That's what it's for.
It also makes it easier to accommodate the fire department,
Mhm.
because, if you give them a day off, they don't get a day off because they're
Right.
volunteers. So we've just given them runs. We did the same thing with the gift cards, they got the same thing. But if we just do a flat payroll amount, or a separate payroll and do that, I think we can actually do that without, it'll take some legwork on my part, but it probably won't take any more than what it did with those.
well, and that's what I was thinking too, because then it's just a matter of that one payroll, and then you're not having to go in and take anything out, it's just a one-time payment,
It's just the one
where you're
time.
not having to go in and remove anything for the next pay period.
And realistically, the dollar amounts won't amount to a ton of money for anybody's taxes. I mean.
Right.
Well,
How's
Kansas
it
just
still come out for that?
1.65. I will have to look. I believe capers will still come out of that, which will so the employees will pay 6%. Anybody who's a capers employee will pay 6% into the capers fund, and anybody who is KPNF at 7.15. We will have to match those, which the police department is roughly almost 23%, and then the cities is roughly at this point 9.
So I was gonna say, how's that gonna impact the budget if we go 200 versus the 150?
We have about 110 employees, so
We what?
we have about 110 employees, between 100 and payroll and this.
$2,200.
22,000.
So,
Another nice thing about doing it this way, like, for example, if the gift card was at a grocery store, they had to spend it on groceries, where this way, if they want to spend it on their kids for Christmas
Mhm.
presents,
Or gas,
or
anything.
whatever,
Yeah.
or for bills if they actually need it for bills.
the only problem that I can see is I may have to have a conversation with capers because they've asked for our special payroll. to already be turned in. I think I can work around that.
Okay.
So I can make that phone call tomorrow if that's the direction.
So if we did 200 though, they would still get more than they did last year, even without the taxes. Probably.
Well, potentially, unless somebody just has, there are a few people out there who have an extra $50 coming out, and whatever their excess comes out of their federal or their states, it's gonna come out of there. So,
Just for the holidays.
just for the holidays, so it's gonna be however their federal taxes are withheld. So if they have a flat So like if mine is single zero, which the new W4s aren't that simple.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're very convoluted. So let's just take somebody who is still on the old W4, who won't change hers for that reason. So if I'm single zero, I may have $5 come out. If you're married zero, you may have zero come out. But if you have an extra 50 coming out, it's
It'll
gonna
come
come
out
out
of the check as
there.
well. Right.
So it's gonna be however the taxes are set up. But,
Oh,
you know,
something's better than all nothing.
well, here, and this is the thing is, you know, if they're doing that, they either have 2 jobs, or they had to pay at some point, and they're trying to make sure they're not gonna have to pay. If they pay in excess, they get it back next spring.
Yeah.
And if they had to pay, well, then they didn't have to pay that extra 50 that they paid in November, December.
We have 110 employees. How's that going to work with this mandate?
Well, that's a good question.
What mandate?
There isn't one yet officially.
For the
Yeah.
shops?
The vaccine.
Over 100.
So depending on the payroll, depending upon who's up and who's down, I'm not really sure how it's gonna work for us. I will probably have to wait and see how it comes out. Because we are right on that edge. And some of our employees, like I say, all will be eligible now since they've lowered the how many, who can get a vaccine and who doesn't get a vaccine. I think they're still,
I think it's gonna be tied up for a while,
I think it
think
will
so
be
too.
too. I didn't.
probably at least
see-
3 years.
I didn't get to hear all of it.
Say that out loud.
I got mine.
I say that out loud, sorry.
The league conference.
Glad I'm
calls,
not-
You don't get yours?
What's the mandate?
You
The
did?
federal mandate
I
that
haven't
says
either.
if you.
I will never get it.
Mm-mm.
You have to have
Never.
Everybody got a vaccine.
I was quarantined last week though.
I
You know,
said
and I
the car
don't know,
didn't move.
we
I
may be
wondered
able to
why.
get exempt if we can say, although they get W2s, our firefighters are volunteers.
And we're volunteers.
Pretty much.
But
You
I
can
mean,
you can keep my
and
$110.
it does, I mean, it doesn't, our payroll does include our council
Yeah.
and our,
Your payroll,
and see, that's what they look at. Is
Well,
we
we
yeah,
don't
don't
get,
you
we
can
don't
make
get
that
this
extra,
200 early.
You don't
We
get
don't.
your shots, you don't get your
You do.
$200.
There are companies that are actually rewarding their employees in their insurance premiums if they received a vaccine and didn't receive a vaccine. So
Say that again.
there are actually companies out there who are rewarding, so like where we have a differential in tobacco versus non-tobacco. There are companies out there that are actually using an insurance differential between vaccinated employees and non-vaccinated employees.
I know, but you're around.
So,
And then there's some that give sleeping bags as a Christmas bonus.
Sleeping bag.
oh, that's a new one.
Max Foot gave that to me for
Sleeping
Christmas
bag?
one year.
Sleeping bag?
I used it.
Well, yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
I got a whole bunch of back room laundry if you want one.
Yeah.
I think the employees would rather have the cash.
Yeah.
Even the nice one.
Yeah.
I probably got enough sleeping bags. I got
Oh my gosh.
All right, so we'll look at putting 200 on the agenda for consideration for Tuesday.
I will try to have all the answers from Capers and everything like
Right,
that.
so
So
you
you'll
can
have
have
all the
it all.
information.
Well, we don't go to the budget.
So we will look at our budget, see if we have any budget left.
Okay.
I think it looks okay. I looked today.
Yeah,
You look today, so
Yeah.
it looks okay that we can do that. Okay.
Yep. all right. Awesome. Thank you, Miss Vicky.
Okay, thank you.
You're awesome.
My pleasure.
Aren't you glad you came?
I am kind of, you know, I don't get to come very
You bring
often.
me a turkey, I'll go look.
Already out there.
Best stuffing ever.
If you can find a turkey, I heard they're hard to
Yeah,
find
I was
already.
gonna say,
I
I
had
was
somebody
mine.
give me one, then I took
About my-
one home today that had bought two.
Well, go to Artie's if you need a turkey.
I bought our stovetop.
No,
Let's get it.
probably would give it away.
Everything is turkey short.
I know. We're gonna be having chicken for.
I bought our
Thanksgiving
stovetop.
dinner.
That's the main thing.
There you go.
I'll make a meatloaf.
Good to see you
Good
again.
to see you guys.
See ya.
Good to see you.
Bye. See you tomorrow.
Okay.
The last council meeting item is the Kansas Gas Franchise Agreement. And
Going up?
yes, we're renewing the agreement. The
No, I
one,
mean, is what we have to pay on our gas bill going up.
oh, I don't know. I don't think so. No,
This is what they pay
this is what
us.
they pay
Yes,
us.
they pay
I
us.
know, but they put it back on.
Yeah,
our
that's
bill.
true.
You're right, probably.
Wait a minute.
The one concern that Sid had was that he wanted to be able to have them go through the right-of-way permitting process. And it's in the agreement that they will have to abide by our rules and go through the permit process, and we still have home rule authority. So
Mhm.
that was the only issue that was solved. It was resolved, it was in the new agreement, so we're gonna move forward with that. Lee reviewed it as well, and we have all of his lovely notes, so.
Yeah.
You want to do rebel?
Yeah, see?
Yeah, lead
So-
scribbles.
We'll have a pretty version for consideration on the agenda. Other business, the only other business I have is that not great news, but also not bad. The Paola Vet Clinic has deeded back the land to us because they said the construction cost is too expensive. The good news is they're still staying in Paola. They bought a new or under contract for another lot out there that already has a building on it. So
There
the one-
At the vet and industrial.
yes, so
The one next to the Fort Scott Community College?
I do not know for
Oh.
sure.
Don't
So-
want
I was gonna
that
say, that's the only
That's
other
the
only
one.
one that's out
I believe so,
there.
yeah.
One that's overpriced for a long time.
So they did give the land back to us. We're gonna put it on the agenda because I believe we still have to accept land even if it's given to us. So that'll be in the minutes as well.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think I have anything else.
What's happening with the one that the people was gonna build the batting cages?
They are working with Rob George right now. So they are in the process of getting their preliminary plans together.
What about the ones down there by Sundance?
I have not heard from them lately. I'm kind of waiting a little bit to reach out until things calm down.
Did we ever do anything about making sure that the garden out there kind of stays a garden?
We did. didn't
It
we?
is
We
not
talked about it.
permanently,
No.
we have not.
Split the tract or something.
We split the tract, so that way the bulk, there, it's separate, it's on its own land right now. But we do not have a permanent agreement that that's gonna be their permanent home.
Mhm.
That is something we're gonna have to address. If we want to give them that land, we should probably do that. Or if we want to keep it and still use it as an incentive to give to someone, that's still a possibility right now.
But you know.
How do
we
you
try
give it to a group that doesn't have a permanent organization?
Yeah.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
they would have
And
to,
who's in charge of it?
they have a board, but.
Well, yeah, but that
Yeah,
changes all
so,
the time.
exactly, so I feel
But
like
you
they
say
would
you're
have
gonna-
to get their ducks in a row before we would consider
Right.
giving it to them.
Well, no, nobody's gonna be, that's not gonna be a high demand spot right
Uh,
now anyway.
yeah.
Especially
Because of the
because we split
layout.
it, Yeah.
Right.
The only reason it would be is because it's zone thoroughfut access now, so it would give a little bit more leeway.
Unless
to
somebody
what
got
can be
one of the
outside.
other ones and wanted to absorb it or something. I
Absolutely,
don't know.
so.
But you tell them to go to that garden now.
I don't even know.
I know.
I don't even know who's in charge of that.
And which one was it that you said that we don't have an agreement that they have to give the land back to us? Was that the?
Klossmeyer,
That's what I
Cosmar, the one
By the
just
bus.
to the west of the bus barn.
Mhm.
yes.
They don't
That was
have
one
to
of the
give it
conditions.
back if they don't use it?
It was not language in our agreement with them, no.
It is now because of
I thought
that
that was-
situation.
I thought that was in the original. When they developed the industrial park, I thought that was,
I don't know,
Mm.
not that I'm aware of, but I can look. If it's in the covenants, that would be great.
you might.
Yeah, I'll look.
The land next to Sundance.
Mhm.
Too.
Okay.
That was, somebody was going in there,
Yes,
but you don't know for sure if they are.
That's the
as of
dog
right
food
now, they
place.
still have an active agreement. They have a
But
whole
for a couple
other,
of more months.
a year.
Yeah,
They have a whole nother
year.
year.
I thought it was only a year.
No, they have
2
2
years.
years to build. And this is the end of the first, and they'll have one more, December of 2022.
Okay, so sometime in the spring, I think we should negotiate with them and see if that land could be used for soccer fields.
Hmm.
Do
Because,
they even want to use them for
Okay, so
soccer?
they-
well, they have in the
I know
past.
they have in the past. but do
Well,
they
I
still?
think the place down by the fair barn flooded so many times this spring that they liked it out there. but they left when they thought it was sold.
I am not sure how that would work insurance purposes wise with a private company owning it
Oh.
and an outside organization playing soccer on it.
What's their time frame on there in regard to you have to start moving forward?
December of 2022. So they have one more
That's
year.
just a year.
I don't know why I thought that
That
if-
time will go
by the
by.
time they
It'll-
bought the land, and we gave it to them for $1,
Mhm.
that they had to start doing something within a year,
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, they have a time frame there.
Yep. All of the last 3 previous agreements have all been 2 years. Substantial construction.
And I would say technically, because we deeded the land over to them for $1, that if anybody wanted to use that land, they would have to contact them. And
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Them. We wouldn't
Yes.
have anything to do.
No, we would not. You're right. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
I just had a couple of very quick things,
Okay.
very random things. I had somebody contact me about fishing in Waterworks Pond. I know,
Mhm.
Somebody came to me about that too, and I said, don't get caught there, they'll give you a ticket.
yeah.
Yep.
So, do you know, I haven't been out there in forever. Is that ever, has that ever been a thing?
Is it not? They
I think
used to
they-
be able to.
They used
But is
to,
it
but I believe it is
posted?
now posted that they cannot.
Cannot?
Yes.
And there's no, because they even ask about like the city doing like a 1 day.
No.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
See the guy die out there too.
Yeah,
There's perch as big as your head, is what I heard. on
Yeah,
that.
they're huge fish. They're in a happy little home.
And then somebody else that this is an issue in the spring, so it's probably something that needs to be brought up closer to spring. But when those big rains come, they're washing that gravel out the alleys, and they called and said, can you just see about getting bigger gravel? So,
in all the alleys.
Do you know what?
and the ones that wash.
We've got
Alleys are
2 or 3,
very
and I
bad.
have really,
I know
I
there's one
talked to
on,
somebody about putting some blacktop on them because I know up there on Iron Street, it washes out, and 2 days later, you get another rain and it
Mhm.
washes out, and I said, you know what, and up by the skyline, and there's one down there.
by
behind-
Osage, there's one by Osage too.
Yeah, Mary's heard it, anyway, that greenhouse, and it washes, it would almost be cheaper to put asphalt on him than it is to all that gravel. It's a constant thing, because after them rains,
Mhm.
the city guys are out constantly
Fighting with it.
redoing them.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only problem with the asphalt versus gravel is water will move a lot faster down asphalt. So it would.
The
might-
runoff, and
Yeah.
it does back up down there on Osage into that creek.
So it might not be more water, but it'll come a lot faster.
Well, and I
They don't
know,
move fast. Get down that hill in a hurry.
So there's gonna have to be a happy medium somewhere.
well, I know Kirk's probably, I'm sure he's probably
Yeah,
looked into all of that, so
but I'll definitely bring it back up to him.
just bigger.
Well, the
gravel
alleys
shooting.
all over town are a problem. There's a few that are good, but a lot of them are,
They all
you're
need
taking your
grading.
life going down them,
They all
and they need to be
grading.
maintained.
Mhm.
I'd like to see them work on 1 or 2 a year, or every once in a while.
But they're constant because of the rain and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
the cars driving there, they just
Plow ours
wash out.
or do whatever,
Mhm.
and then sometimes I see some neighbors digging it back out, so.
But there's some where you
Isn't that weird?
drive,
Like, leave it alone.
They dig out the rock.
Yeah, 'cause then it runs into their yard. That's probably why.
They're
they
putting a
don't
moat,
mess with
they
it.
want a moat around there.
Works for me.
Yeah, Yeah.
They drive it one.
right.
All right,
okay, I have something.
oh, okay.
It's about the contract with Confluence or Confluence, whichever it is. I was looking at the contract that we voted on in February, and I was going through it. And then I had another contract that was given to me at a meeting or somewhere, I don't know where. But this contract has quite a few changes in it from the one that we voted on. And it's in regard, a lot of the changes are in regards to with the Wallace Park input analysis and conceptual master planning, there's a lot that's been added into this, and it's not in the original, and I'm just wondering, which one are we going by? I know you'd have to look it up.
Yes, I would have to. look at
But
I know we
This-
added the park stuff
it. Mhm.
after,
we couldn't have added, you couldn't add it after we voted on it
no,
at the
I mean, we
meeting.
added it before.
It was not, this is the one that I got at the meeting. And does not have anything in here about the park or anything. So if they added anything
Do
after
you
that
have the date
meeting,
of the meeting on there?
yeah,
Okay.
this is the agenda of the meeting and everything. It was
Yeah,
all,
yeah, can I have the date, please, so I can?
February 9th.
What's the one on the?
And that's
other
the
one?
work study meeting too.
Yeah, so that
that's
could have
not
been a
the-
draft agreement if it was the work study meeting.
No, this was our agenda. This was not a
Oh,
work
that is
study.
the, that is the
This is not a
agenda,
work
yeah.
Okay, so
study.
February 9th.
Okay, now what's your date on the?
So, and
other
it
one?
was, and the guy from Confluence signed it on February 3rd. This one has a lot of changes in it. And it was dated February 8th,
The day
the
before?
day before the council meeting. But this is not the one that was in the council meeting packet.
Okay, where did you get that one?
You all
I
right?
don't know. Somebody, they handed them out. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I got it, somebody gave it to me. I don't know when or where, but.
Okay, so
But
we'll.
you're saying you remember they made some changes?
Well, I remember when we very first started talking about it, we added that, we asked them to focus on the parks
Yeah.
specifically to get those questions. Remember that survey in the very, very beginning?
Yeah,
We added that park plan on to have them focus on that first.
but you wouldn't be able to legally add anything onto this that we voted on after
Right.
we voted.
I don't think we
So-
did. I think it was included in that. But
It's
I don't
not,
know.
it's not.
Okay, we'll look at it. We will pull it and see which one.
Okay, so my other thing is, I just think there's a lot of, I do not understand this, contract with Confluence. We voted to spend $149,050. And, thus far, we have spent $43,000 with them. And then we have another Paola Aquatic study that you've paid out $5,500.
Mhm.
Now, is that coming out of that $10,000 that Sid talked about that nobody knows about, and where did it come from? We don't know. Okay, I have taken this off of the YouTube. This was our work session, October 5th. And I made the statement that I thought that they were spending too much time on the Confluence was spending too much time on the baseball field, swimming pool and all that. And this would cut into the amount that they would be using on the comp plan. And Sid said that they knew that's why the cost was more than a normal comp plan. That was the conversation when we developed that scope. That's a separate little contract with them. And WTI, I'm not sure if it's WTI, gave us more specific information on the pool. And I asked, was that separate money? And he said, yes. And I said, how much? And he said, less than $10,000. They came out and did a full assessment, taking in cost estimates.
Mhm.
I am trying to find out where this $10,000 came from. We didn't vote on it. And so I have found out, since the city manager can spend $10,000 on a project, but I would have thought we would have been told about it. And the only reason we knew about it is because I asked that question, and he said that at the meeting. But anyway, I want to know when did we award Confluence a contract to design the pool and the baseball fields?
We have
We
it.
didn't,
So any of the work they're doing now will come out of the $149,000.
I think so.
So the pool, the 10,000, I believe, was the WTI study, what you said. So
Yeah.
at the very beginning, what Sid was referencing as when we developed the scope, if you go back and look at the RFP for the entire project, we included that we want a separate, more robust section for parks. And that would be the Wallace Park. That's why they did it in front, and that's why they're designing it for us and did all those concepts.
But
So
there's,
that was part of it. That was part of the initial entire comp plan.
but that's not in, like I said, the contract we voted on,
Mhm.
it doesn't mention very much about Wallace Park at all.
That's because it's just the Parks Master Plan. So that's part of the Parks Master Plan, was to do the study and the survey and everything for Wallace Park as well.
And then also here, Confluence, they don't do baseball fields. They're gonna, I don't understand why we have gotten them involved in our pool and the baseball.
They're just
fields.
doing the planning.
Yeah, there's the planning. So that's
Well,
where we got.
they're also going to send out the packets for bids.
So that's why we got Confluence, and that's also why they use WSP or WTI. So
What does
Yeah.
WTI stand for?
they are, I'm not sure, but they are the engineering firm that does the pools. So they have, they're able to subcontract out to specialties that do that kind of engineering work. So
But-
there is a whole list of subcontractors they're going to use for the design work for the ball fields. They are not doing it themselves.
Like Mammoth.
Yes, like Mammoth and WTI and SPS and
And correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the reason that we had Confluence work with us on the design of the ball fields, not that we're going with their design,
Mhm.
was because initially when Paola Youth Sports approached us, they had Mammoth give them, here's 4 fields and here's what it would look like in Wallace Park.
Yes.
So we started looking at that and saying, okay, you're at $2.9 million and you got a fourplex, but you don't have the road, you don't have raising it up out of the floodplain. So there's a lot that they didn't have.
Mhm.
And because Confluence had done so much work with other cities in the past, helping them plan out projects, that's why we went back to Confluence and said, okay, what would a fourplex look like here? And what would that cost us? So they came back with their engineering group and said, okay, here's what it would look like and here's what it would cost. Here's what we're estimating it would cost. That's where we came up with like
Mhm.
the
Yes.
7 something million fourplex. That's what led to the discussion about different locations and things like that. But it's not, we're not having Confluence design what the fields are gonna look like. We wanted them to give us an overview of, okay, if we put fourplexes
And
in. what would that
And we
look like?
have no choice on who they choose to, I mean, it sounds like here, they're gonna choose Mammoth. We have no choice on who they choose.
So they're using them to design. So
I
they're
know.
gonna design it and they're gonna put the bid product together and then it's gonna be put out for bids. So we will get to choose overall who is
Right.
gonna do the work.
Mammoth is they're having Mammoth do that.
Yes, just the 2 turf ball fields. Yes, the design work for that. They are designing everything else and they're putting the big projects together and then they will put it out there for bids to be solicited. It's essentially what's going. So they're not doing the work. They're just doing the design
Right, so
behind it.
we haven't entered into agreement with them to
No.
build the ball field or
No.
anything else. And even this, the initial funds that we talked about just to get the project going, that was to do some of the initial engineering work to determine where the floodplain was and exactly what had to happen to get the 2 fields that we talked about built at Wallace Park. But we haven't,
And
Confluence is not, we haven't hired Confluence to build anything, or we haven't contracted with them to build anything. They're just going through that initial design phase. And since Mammoth has done so many fields, they went to Mammoth and said, hey, tell us what this field would look like. Mammoth did that, and they're doing that for Confluence in the hopes that they will get the bid,
Mhm.
but they're still putting that bid package together. So it's just all the initial design phase, but we haven't, none of that's been decided as far as any contracts to say
No.
you're getting the job or anything like
You
that.
have to have a design before you put it out for proposal.
on the
And that's what
pool,
they're- and
Well, and you don't
Mammoth
even
has
know the
already
engineering.
done-
Right.
Mammoth has already done a lot of work down here,
Mhm.
well,
so that.
that what we didn't have them do that.
No, we did not, but they do have the information.
And they did all of it. And they
Yeah.
did a lot of stuff down there.
Yeah, so anyway, and they have to, you have to have something to put out for bid. You have to have a design.
That's right. And on the pool, I haven't been able to figure out why we didn't use local people. The people that built the pool were Carruthers and Triangle Builders. To me, we could have gone to them and it would have been local and
He reached out to them previously at the very beginning.
Right, and they've actually even come down and done a walk around of the
Yes.
pool to talk about maintenance issues, but again, the pool, it's the same issue with the pool. Confluence has done so many of these and done so much work with so many cities that we just had them come in and kind of put a plan together of, okay, here's what this would cost, and here's some rough estimates of what the lazy river would cost, the slides and things like that, so we've got an idea of what to go with. But again, we haven't led any contracts for anything because we haven't gotten it. We haven't even determined exactly what we're gonna add.
Yeah.
Those initial figures were just from Confluence because they've got such a large history with other contractors that they could tell us what they thought it would cost.
So
And they did talk to
Be
Splash
optional.
Spectacular.
Yeah.
here
Oh,
yeah.
also.
And
Splash Spectacular and,
Yes.
Carruthers.
Well, I imagine when it actually comes to start doing work, there'll be more local people involved.
Yes.
Right.
so what happens with the fact that Confluence is spending so much time on the baseball field and the pool? We haven't seen anything on our
They're-
comp plan.
Well, they're doing a
Not
lot.
anything.
They're doing a lot of other stuff.
Well, we haven't
Because
seen
I-
anything.
We've been. in
I
meetings
talked
with
with Chris Shires today.
them.
He's sending over a new schedule in the next month where you're gonna have an advisory meeting planned to go over the draft and the future land use map again, as well as probably do another public outreach engagement. So that
And-
people can come and look at the future land use map to get a little bit more feedback before they do the final proposal.
Because we've still been
And-
having an advisory committee meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what if he, doing all this and doing the pool and the
Mhm.
baseball field, what if they spend the $149,000? They're gonna want more money.
I'm pretty sure in the contract, it was a max of 149.
Maybe I'll do that.
They're all doing it. They're doing it all. It's all part of the
We won't do
contract.
So
that.
basically, the
Doesn't
part,
do
That do
that.
not succeed is
the
149.
whole idea initially when we were talking about that,
Yeah.
the park master plan
Let's say
was to
50%.
put that on the front end so we could start talking about that because we knew we needed to, we know we need to do the pool. We know we've got a lot of maintenance to do to the pool. We know we've got to fund the pool for the next 15 years. We also know we've got a lot of park work to do. We've got the dam to take care of. And we wanted to try and do something with the ball fields. So when we talked to Confluence, we asked them to front load
Mhm.
the parks portion of that.
It's a priority.
It's not that we went to them and said, okay, we want you to do this, and now we're coming back and saying, okay, we want you to do all this extra work with the pool and the ball fields. I think the only extra thing that we have done is gone back to them and had them do a quick design of the ball fields in a different location.
With
Yeah.
the two instead of four.
With it, well, and with the two but instead of the four, because we weren't sure what was going on. So it's not, I think you're looking at it and all we're seeing is the pool portion and the ball field portion. That's just the portion we're seeing. The wastewater treatment plant, the water treatment plant is still going on. The rest of the comprehensive plan is still going on behind the scenes. But we're not involved in the day-to-day of that. We've just been involved with the pool and the ball fields because that's something we've got to spend the sales tax money on. So it appears from, and I don't know about the contract, we'll have to look at that, but it appears that we're doing all of this work up front. Everything else is still going on behind the scenes and we knew this work was going to be done up front.
Mhm.
So I don't think they're not spending extra money or extra time on the pool and the ball fields. That was already figured in.
Well, and maybe we need to be better about
I
updating with committee meetings. and stuff.
I think so, because in
Well, what
reading,
is going on with the committee?
Last time we talked about land use,
Mhm.
You are.
talked about land use, and they've gotten all these figures.
Mhm.
They have this whole map about, what parts of town have older homes and then what parts of town have art apartments, high occupancy, all these different studies. It's been really interesting to me. Probably some people think it's boring, but, and their ideas for what would maybe work in the future if we annex some things. It's
But
been,
we haven't been informed of anything.
no,
And,
No, they're all at that committee
And-
level.
well, and then they talk about the consultant team. Who's the consultant team?
Lee
That's mentioned
represents the
25
council.
times.
The
committee?
No, it says the consultant team.
Chris Shires,
Look,
Jenna,
it's-
everyone that was there that presented.
They
for
mentioned that
conference.
25 times in here,
Mhm.
and I don't know anything. Nothing's
The
been
people at
told us at all.
So.
Not
with-
anything on the comp plan or anything.
With the new dates that Chris is coming up with, will we have an update at the?
Absolutely.
at the council meeting?
Yes,
So we can get an update on that to determine where we are with the rest of the process based on the original timeline that he gave us.
yes, he's sending a whole new calendar with all of the dates and everything.
And the other thing is, somebody's gonna have to hire an engineer to go and check out the baseball fields for the floodplain and all that. I don't know who's doing that.
Well,
That's
that's
part
part
of
of
the
the
design.
initial
3 million.
temporary notes
Yeah.
that we're,
Yeah.
that we're
Okay.
trying to get some of that going up front, because we know we got to do that, so.
Okay, and I have a name of an engineer that might be good for that. He was recommended by Splash, whatever.
Splash
Splashtacular.
Okay.
I have the name of him, and he lives in Fort Scott. He's done work around here before.
Great.
Okay, one other thing, I had someone call me, they would, I think I mentioned this to one of you. The parking lot across from this seniors center, they would like to have that marked, with the parking lines where they can pull in
Sure.
and,
Actually, both,
hmm,
the one across from City Hall here.
yeah, the
and
city
one
hall needs
across
it
from the
too.
senior
I
center,
believe that Sid brought that up to Kirk, but we ran out of paint. And at that time, it didn't make sense to buy a lot more paint for 2 parking lots. And it didn't make sense to do it right before winter when we're gonna be scraping it. So I do know it's on the project for next spring when we do that, but I don't think it's gonna happen this winter.
Okay,
And then getting his hands on paint, he says, a lot harder than it probably should be right now. So
just go look at the paint aisle at Walmart.
Yeah.
They do have the new striper.
they have the new striper to get it done next spring though. So, but it will, yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think it'll happen in the near.
Okay, and then I have another question.
Brian
has
Yeah.
Paola received the American Rescue Plan Act, the money for this year? Have we received that money?
Yes.
And is it in a special account or
Yes.
has there been any money spent out of it?
No.
Okay,
We don't have any plans for the ARPA money.
okay. Sometime I'd like to know what that money can be spent for.
I know that like infrastructure, bandwidth.
Oh, yeah, we talked about using it for that.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, we
I
talked
can't
about
remember
using it
the
for
other
that.
Wastewater?
Wastewater, yeah.
Our internet.
But we were waiting on getting some master plans and
Yeah.
stuff back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Waiting to get all of our,
Waiting to
yes,
get all of our
Because we have
stuff, all of our planned
2024 to
stuff left.
spend that.
yeah, we have a
Mhm.
while.
We got half this year and we'll get the other half of money next year.
Because we're getting ready to get a lot of information.
Yes.
And then the praying hands down at the cemetery. I know, they need to be, they're turning black. They need to be cleaned up. And
Is it that,
it's.
is it like the stuff
it's
you can
praying
spray
hand.
off?
I don't know.
TJ
I'm-
slider?
I bet.
I talked to Mike Grable about it and he is aware of it. And there is funds. I don't, you know this NOAA fund.
Yeah, that's still there.
It's still there. It's $3,000. It's been there since,
So I can.
Yeah,
just
30
say, I wanna
years.
claim myself.
and so if it needed
One
money just to
dependent,
clean it up, they
yeah,
could use
Look
some of that
on a
money.
chart and try to figure
But
out.
they're getting pretty ugly.
It's, like I say,
So,
Okay,
okay.
all
thank you.
the people that I do the
Randy?
payroll for, it's a nightmare.
I would like to say one thing to the council. This is the first meeting I've been in where I can hear each one of you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
we like this room.
Well,
I know, but over there at the firehouse,
It's
I
bad.
can't hear you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're, yeah, and when we're at the Justice Center, I can't hear you.
well, and I can't, sometimes I can't hear. I mean, sometimes you're talking and your voice will drop or somebody's, it doesn't speak as loudly. And when you're over there, you can't hear.
It's definitely cozier here.
It is. I like it here.
Yeah, you too.
Oh, I like it here
Yeah, I
better,
do
much
too.
better.
Fine.
And we never had very many
Background
guests.
noise.
All right. good
I-
night.
Not at these.